husband left his wife alone at the airport and disappeared. When she received a message, she was in shock. Sarah and Thomas are about to celebrate 20 years of what seemed like a perfect marriage. But as a dream trip to Greece approaches, something starts to change. Mysterious phone calls, unrevealed secrets, and a husband who no longer seems like the man she thought he was. At the airport, a devastating discovery changes Sarah's life forever. Sarah and Thomas were about to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary, a milestone that few couples reach. They met in college when she was a history student passionate about ancient civilizations and he was an ambitious young man, always with detailed plans for the future. Thomas became a successful real estate businessman, known for his ability to close complex deals. As for Sarah, after a few years of teaching, she felt fulfilled sharing her passion for the past with her students. The house they built together was a reflection of their life, a cozy home in an upscale neighborhood filled with photographs from their travels and memories of happy moments. "We've managed to build something beautiful, haven't we?" Sarah once commented, admiring a photo of the couple on one of their trips. Thomas smiled but soon turned his attention back to his phone, always busy with some business call. Sarah sighed, accustomed to this side of him that could never disconnect from work. Thomas was practical, focused, and methodical, while Sarah always kept a dreamer's spirit. He liked the security of a planned and well-organized life, but Sarah was captivated by the idea of exploring the world. She wanted to have children, dreamed of a house full of laughter and children running around. However, Thomas never shared that desire. "I don't see space for that, Sarah. I don't think I'd be a good father, and I don't want our life to change because of something I'm not sure I can handle," he had said in the early years of their marriage. Sarah, in love, accepted it. Deep down, she hoped he would change his mind over time. But the years passed, and that desire slowly turned into silent pain. Every time she heard friends talk about motherhood, something inside her tightened. Every time children's laughter echoed through the neighborhood, Sarah imagined what it would be like if her house was the one to host that sound. Thomas, on the other hand, never noticed the melancholy in his wife's eyes, too focused on his business and the plans that kept them financially secure. As their 20th anniversary approached, Sarah decided it was time to fulfill an old dream, a trip to Greece. She spent weeks planning everything, researching details about Santorini, Athens, and the historic ruins she had always wanted to visit. "I booked the hotel in Santorini. Thomas, you have to see the photos. It's beautiful. It'll be like the early years of our marriage. Remember?" She spoke excitedly, but Thomas replied with a tired smile. "Sarah, I don't think this is the best time. The company is going through an important transition, and I'm not sure I can take time off," Sarah insisted, undeterred by his excuses. "Once we're on the plane, he'll get excited," she thought. But in the days leading up to the trip, Thomas began to act strangely. He took secret phone calls, stepped away to talk, and returned with a heavy expression. Sarah tried to ignore it, convincing herself they were just work worries. But an uncomfortable feeling wouldn't leave her, as if something was about to change permanently. The day of the trip finally arrived, and Sarah was anxious. Dressed in her best smile, she tried to infect Thomas with her excitement, but he seemed increasingly distant. "It's going to be amazing, Thomas. Just think, the two of us exploring the Acropolis ruins, sailing through the Aegean Sea. You'll love it, I promise," she said, trying to hide her anxiety. Thomas forced a smile, replying only with, "Sure, Sarah. It will be nice, yes." On the morning of the trip, while Sarah was finalizing the last details of the luggage, Thomas received a call that visibly shook him. He quickly left for his office, closing the door firmly. Sarah felt a chill down her spine but tried to push away the negative thoughts. When he finally returned, his face was pale, and his eyes avoided hers. "Is everything okay, Thomas?" she asked, trying to hide the concern in her voice. "Yes, just a work issue," he replied, but his voice was harsher than usual. During the drive to the airport, the atmosphere was tense. Sarah asked about their trip plans, but Thomas replied with monosyllables, lost in his own thoughts. When they arrived at the airport, he stepped away again to take a call. "Sarah, sitting in the waiting area, watched from a distance as he gestured nervously, his face contorted with an expression she had never seen before. At that moment, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You need to see this," the text read, followed by a link. With trembling hands, Sarah clicked on the link and was directed to a news video. In the video, a reporter was talking about a man wanted for being a millionaire scam artist, involved in fraud schemes that had harmed hundreds of people. Next to the reporter, there was a photo of Thomas, but he was called by another name, David Miller. Sarah felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The image of Thomas, no David, smiling next to the reporter blended with the memories of 20 years together. Struggling to hold back tears, she looked around, searching for Thomas, but he was nowhere to be seen. Desperate, she called him, but his phone was off. She tried again and again, but all she could hear was the empty sound of a disconnected line. Sitting there, alone amidst the bustling airport, Sarah felt a wave of despair wash over her. Why did he lie to me? Who was this man I lived with all this time? Frenzied thoughts raced through her mind as she tried to process the truth. The marriage she believed to be solid and secure crumbled before her eyes, like a house of cards swept away by the wind. With the phone still in her hands, Sarah made one more attempt to call Thomas, but the result was the same, nothing. Desperate, she tried to stay calm and figure out what to do next. She looked around, observing the people around her, preparing to board their own flights, unaware of the chaos her life had just become. The tears, once held back, now flowed freely down her face. As she tried to pull herself together, a new message arrived on her phone. It was from Thomas, or perhaps David. She no longer knew who he was. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I couldn't keep lying anymore. Don't try to find me. I hope you can find a way to move on." Sarah read those words over and over, in disbelief, felt like she was being punched repeatedly. The man she had loved for 2 decades was leaving her without any explanation, abandoning her in one of the most devastating moments of her life. Not knowing what to do, she looked at the boarding pass in her hands. A thought began to form. If she returned home, she would hide from the shame and the scandal. But if she boarded the flight, maybe she could find a way to rediscover herself amidst the chaos. "I can't let him destroy all the good that I still have," she told herself, breathing deeply and trying to find strength within. With her decision made, Sarah walked to the boarding gate and handed her ticket to the attendant. As she waited for the plane to take off, she gazed out the window, watching the airport grow smaller and smaller. She knew she was leaving behind not just a city, but an entire life that now felt like a lie. The tears still flowed, but along with them came a new determination. The pain was immense, but Sarah felt that she had to face this new challenge, even if it meant doing it alone. The flight to Athens was a haze for Sarah. Sitting next to an elderly woman reading a novel, unaware of the world around her, Sarah felt like she was trapped in a nightmare from which she couldn't wake up. Images of Thomas smiling at her, holding her hands, promising eternal love, now merged with the cold revelation of the video she had watched. In her mind, one question echoed over and over: how was I so blind? How did I not realize something was wrong? She gazed out the airplane window, trying to find comfort in the clouds passing by, but all she felt was an overwhelming emptiness. The pain of betrayal was a constant presence, a wound that seemed endless. Next to her, the woman finally stopped reading and looked at her, noticing the devastated expression on her face. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked, her voice gentle. Sarah forced a smile, fighting back the tears. "Yes, just a lot on my mind," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The woman nodded, perhaps sensing that it wasn't the right time to ask more, and returned to her book. But those few words made Sarah feel even more alone. In that moment, she realized she was beginning a new journey, and she would be the only one carrying the emotional baggage Thomas had left behind. When the plane landed in Athens, Sarah felt a mix of relief and disorientation. She was in a foreign country, surrounded by people she didn't know, and at the same time, she carried an invisible weight in her heart. As she walked through the busy airport, she felt like a spectator in her own life, as if she were watching from afar a version of herself trying to find direction amid the chaos. "I need to make sense of all this. I need to understand myself, she thought. She took a taxi to the hotel in Santorini she had booked for her and Thomas. During the ride, she looked out the window, admiring the beauty of the Greek landscapes, but she felt too distant to truly appreciate what she was seeing. When she arrived at the hotel, she was greeted with a warm smile from the receptionist, who escorted her to the room. The young woman, unaware of the situation, commented cheerfully, "I hope you and your husband enjoy your stay. The wine in the room is a gift for couples like you." Sarah simply nodded, thanking her with a weak smile, but as soon as she entered the room, the weight of the situation hit her hard. The room was prepared for a romantic celebration. Rose petals on the bed, a bottle of wine waiting, and the balcony offering a breathtaking view of the Aegean Sea. She collapsed onto the bed, hugging a pillow as the tears streamed down her face again. The pain was so intense it almost took her breath away. "I won't let this define me," she thought, trying to summon strength she wasn't sure she had. The next day, Sarah woke up to the gentle sound of waves crashing against the rocky shore. The sun was shining over the blue sea, and the light poured into the room, bathing everything in a golden glow. Sarah lay there for a few minutes, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, and decided she couldn't spend the day locked in that room, wallowing in her pain. She needed to get out, she needed to move, or the sadness would consume her. She dressed in light clothes and set out to walk through the streets of Santorini, without a clear destination in mind. The beauty of the whitewashed houses, with their blue doors, and the narrow streets filled with flowers, stood in stark contrast to how she felt inside. But as she walked, she found a bit of peace by getting lost in the alleys, exploring the details she had once imagined sharing with Thomas. During one of her walks, Sarah stopped in front of a small church perched on a cliff. She looked out at the sea, trying to absorb the serenity of the view, when she heard a voice beside her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said a man, speaking English with a slight Greek accent. Sarah turned and saw a man in his 40s, with a gentle smile and a straw hat. "My name is Alex. I'm a tour guide here on the island. Can I help you with anything?" Sarah smiled, for the first time genuinely since everything had happened. "No, thank you. I'm just trying to figure out what to do next," she replied, not realizing she was opening up to a stranger. Alex noticed the lost look in Sarah's eyes and, without pressing her, changed the subject. "I know a special place here, a lookout that few tourists know about. If you want, I can show you." Sarah hesitated, but something in Alex's calm tone made her accept. During the walk to the lookout, Alex talked about the history of Santorini, about the myths and legends that surrounded the island, and with each new story, Sarah felt her mind drift a little further from the weight she carried. When they arrived at the lookout, the view was stunning. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, reflecting on the sea that stretched as far as the eye could see. Alex noticed the emotional look on Sarah's face and gently asked, "You seem to be going through something difficult." "Sometimes, sharing helps to ease the pain." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling her confidence grow. "I was here to celebrate 20 years of marriage. But my husband, he lied to me. He wasn't who I thought he was." Sarah's voice trembled, but she felt strangely relieved to say it out loud. Alex listened in silence, respecting her space, then responded, "Greece has always been a place of rebirth for many. Can be a new beginning for you too." Sarah, touched by the simplicity of his words, looked out at the horizon, allowing the beauty of the moment to surround her. For the first time, she felt a spark of hope in her heart, as if, maybe, there was a path ahead, even amid the pain. In the days that followed, Sarah continued to explore Santorini, often accompanied by Alex, who became a constant and comforting presence. He didn't try to fill the silences or pressure her to talk. He was simply there, showing her hidden corners of the island, introducing her to small restaurants that served traditional dishes, and sharing stories about the Greek myths she had always loved. One day, as they were walking along a trail that led to a secluded beach, Alex commented, "Sarah, sometimes life pushes us into places we didn't plan for, but that doesn't mean we can't find beauty in them." Sarah smiled, reflecting on his words. "I think I'm starting to understand that. I never imagined I'd be here, alone." But maybe I need to learn how to know myself without defining myself by what Thomas did. During a dinner at a seaside taverna, Sarah opened up to Alex about her years with Thomas, about the happy moments and the promises that now seemed empty. I feel like the person I loved never really existed, she confessed, her voice choked with emotion. Alex looked at her with empathy. I believe, in some way, you knew a real side of him. But his lies can't erase your truth, Sarah. Alex's words touched her deeply, and a tear rolled down Sarah's face, though this time it wasn't just out of sadness. It was a tear of relief, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time, realizing that despite everything, there was still life beyond the pain. In the days that followed, the friendship between them grew stronger. Sarah began to see Alex not as a solution to her problems, but as someone willing to walk beside her as she found her own answers. On the last night before Alex left for a job on another island, they sat on the beach, watching the stars twinkle in the sky. Alex broke the silence, saying, I know you still have a long road ahead, but I hope Greece has given you something good, despite it all. Sarah smiled, looking at him and then up at the starry sky. It's given me a new chance to find myself, and I think that's the most important thing. As she watched the waves gently break on the shore, Sarah realized that, despite the pain she still carried, there was something liberating about being there, far from all of Thomas's lies. She felt, for the first time, that she could imagine a future where she wasn't just the betrayed wife, but a woman capable of rebuilding herself. The dawn brought a new light, and Sarah knew she was ready to move forward, even if it was one step at a time.